That is so devastating, man.
What you're about to witness today, like all these mudcake remnants, waterlogged traces, severe corrosion, and lifeless logic boards, are the devastating aftermath of Malaysia's most catastrophic flood in 2021.
Wih, Keisha counter aku.
This iMac has been through the worst, but can we restore and bring it back to life? Here we've got the submerged iMac sitting right on the table, and you can really see how much mud it's covered in. It's not just a bit of surface dirt, there's a thick layer of mud caked onto the lower front. And when we turn it around, it's even worse at the back, as you can see the mud clinging on the iMac stand as well as the lower chassis, and it's almost everywhere actually. This iMac took a serious hit from the flood, and it's going to be a challenge to get it back to life, but let's get to it. Our technician is starting by carefully cleaning the corner of the iMac. You can see the mud is baked onto the surface, it's dried up and clinging to the glass and chassis. We're using a combination of dry tissue to loosen the larger chunks and wet tissue to soften the stubborn dirt that's stuck on the chassis. It's not a quick job, as each pass with the tissue needs care to avoid scratching the LCD while making sure all that mud is wiped clean. This kind of detailed cleaning is a slow process, but we've got to take our time and make sure we get every bit of that dried mud off. After we've managed to clean up most of the front, we move around to the back of the iMac. And as you can see, the mud didn't just settle on the display, as it's covering the top aluminum near the Apple logo, then the power button, then the Ethernet port as well as the USB-C port on the left side. Maybe we also need to clean the inside of the SD card slot too. The display stand is still covered in mud, so we're carefully working on removing it bit by bit. Just like the front, we're using the same method, dry tissues to scrape off the big patches, followed by wet tissues to clean the finer details. Well, the key here is patience, ensuring that no part of the mud is left behind, especially around the display stand where the mud has settled into the corners. As we continue, it's really important to keep our workspace clean when the mud is falling off as we go, so we gotta make sure to brush the table down after each section is cleaned. Once the outer part of the iMac is clean, we carefully slide the S-Slice tool into the gap between the display and the rear housing. To cut through the adhesive strips, we start at the top, then go down the left and right side of the display. You can also use a small amount of isopropyl alcohol to loosen up the adhesive. We're gonna keep cutting the adhesive strips until we feel the display loosen from the rear housing, and you can really feel it when it's ready to come off. As we peek inside the iMac, you can already see it's covered in mud.
That is so devastating, man.
So we will carefully start disconnecting the EDP cable, the backlight power cable, and the camera cable from the logic board. These connections are delicate, so we've gotta be extra careful. Now we will peel off the adhesive strips at the bottom of the display, and the display is finally free. But here's where it gets even worse. It looks like the 5K resolution iMac screen has been badly corroded by the flood minerals. I hope it's not going to be a big issue. Then we will carefully set the display panel aside so we can focus on the inside of the iMac. And yeah, it's not looking good. Mud and corrosion are everywhere, on the logic board, the power supply, the fan, and the speakers. From here, we're not really sure if this iMac can be saved. From here, we can identify that this is the last Intel iMac 27-inch 2020, as we can see the non-soldered here. Next up, we're going to remove the chin strap by taking out 9 Phillips screws. And that's out. Now we will unscrew 2 Torx screws holding the left speaker, then lift it just a bit, just enough to remove the power button cable. We then need to unplug the power button cable from the PSU, then unplug the left speaker cable from the logic board before we can fully remove the speaker. Now that's out of the way, and we can see most of the mud is on the front side, and the back side only has some little traces. Next, we're going to remove the iMac's fan by unscrewing 3 Torx screws and disconnect the fan cable from its socket. The fan is also heavily mudded on the front side, and the back side doesn't really have that much traces. Now we move on to the power supply unit or PSU by removing 4 Torx screws, then disconnect the power bridge cable, then the AC plug hidden behind the chin, and finally the DC plug at the back. And yeah, it's interesting to see only one side of it covered in mud, and I hope it still has a fighting chance. Now we've got to get the logic board and right speaker out, so we're going to unscrew a whole bunch of Torx screws holding the logic board, the Wi-Fi antenna screws, as well as 4 screws holding the back heatsink. Then loosen the screws of the speaker to slightly tilt it to the right, making way to finally free the logic board and the right speaker from the chassis. And as usual, the front side is heavily covered in mud and corrosion, but as you turn it around, we can barely see the mud traces except some few corroded inductors as well as corroded CMOS battery. Same goes for the right speaker. Now the teardown continues for the logic board as we're going to remove the DDR4 memory modules, then the heavily corroded CMOS battery, then USB port's plastic cover, and remove the rubber pad for the Ethernet components. Then we will begin to unscrew all 4 screws holding the CPU heatsink, then proceed to undone the GPU screws, and with that, you can finally detach the heatsink from the logic board. The CPU pins look good and the GPU looks not bad, and it seems that we also need to clean the heatsink. So we will proceed to unscrew the memory holder screws so we can fully clean the mud traces if there's any. There's a little corrosion there. Then we will go ahead and remove the PCH plastic cover as well as prying the T2 EMI shield from the logic board, and thank goodness it looks clean inside, so I hope it's still working. Make sure to not forget to remove the Wi-Fi shield. All corroded screws will be left inside the WD-40 solution for some time. Time to clean the logic board. We rinse the heavy mud in the bathroom and only then we put it inside the ultrasonic cleaner with a mix of distilled water and Branson Easy solution. And as you can see, we don't have a huge ultrasonic cleaner, so you gotta use what you have, and we're going to keep it in the cleaner for several minutes, covering one side, then switch side until the entire surface is covered. Then we need to soak the entire logic board in a container filled with 99% IPA. While the logic board is being soaked, we're gonna do the same for the PSU by rinsing the heavy mud with water, then placing it inside the same ultrasonic cleaner. But it seems that the black paint on the PSU heatsink is coming off. Well, maybe it's not a good idea. We will then move on to the main chassis. The fastest way we figure out to remove all the internal mud is by cleaning it with the tap water inside the bathroom. Same goes for the stand, as we just clean it with the tap water. Then we just use the high-tech solar energy dish to fully dry the chassis and stand. It looks silly, but it works. Now we're back to the 5K LCD. We have to carefully remove the EDP cable, then try to remove the EMI metal shield at the top of the LCD, and that will expose the T-Con board for the LCD data line. Honestly, the condition of the T-Con board is not really that bad inside, so we forgot to take a close-up picture of it, but we just performed some minor cleaning with water and alcohol on this T-Con board, then let it dry. After everything has completely dried, we're gonna go ahead and hang the main chassis on the stand, then bring forth the hinge and begin to secure 9 Torx screws on the stand and another 6 screws to hold the hinge to the chassis. Just as we think we can move forward and things will go right, there are unfortunately traces of corrosion still to be found on the antenna plate, like this one and this one. So we're going to brush the oxidation using WD-40 and resolder the broken antenna to its place. And we're gonna do the same for the other antenna joints too. Next, for the logic board, surprisingly, we just need to repair this one heavy corrosion on the CMOS battery, as we only need to replace this 1 kilo ohm resistor, then just buy a new BR1632A CMOS battery. This is the outer side of the cooling fan before and after cleaning the mud, and this is the inside of the cooling fan after cleaning the mud. Next, this is what the left speaker looks like before and after cleaning, and here goes the same for the right speaker after removing all the silt traces. And honestly, it took a lot of time and effort to make sure all the mud is cleaned, because sometimes when you think all the dirt is gone, but as the part dries up and only then you can see a slim silt that you still need to clean again. And even when you did that, it's still not going to be 100% dirt free, maybe just like 97%, because the whole restoration process already took a month to complete, as we are required to clean every single component manually using water or alcohol or WD-40. Then we need to give it a day for it to completely dry. Then if we found another minor dirt, then we need to clean it again and again, repeat it back and forth until you think it's enough. And honestly, repairing this one CMOS battery circuit is so much easier than cleaning the whole other parts. So it's a really tedious and tiring job actually. But that's totally fine, because today FlexiSpot sponsored this video and sent us the C7 Premium Ergonomic chair to complement our hardworking technician to use. And the chair is really comfortable to rest on after standing or sitting for a long time at work. The C7's sturdy build can support up to 300 pounds, making it a reliable choice for everyone. The lumbar support is a standout feature as it snugly fits against your back, providing firm support while keeping your clothing in place. The C7 is fully customizable to fit your exact needs, as you can adjust the height to match your desk or sitting posture perfectly. The backrest tilts and locks at different angles, so it's got you covered whether you're working upright or leaning back to relax. The armrests can be raised, lowered, or angled to provide support where you need it the most, reducing strain on your shoulders and wrists. And the headrest is adjustable too. With all these options, the C7 ensures that everyone, no matter their height or build, can find their perfect sitting position. It also comes with a 10-year warranty, so it's really built to last, giving you the confidence to sit however you like. It's also perfect for long hours of focused work, as the C7 supports your posture and keeps you comfortable all day. The breathable mesh design keeps you cool and comfortable even during the longest work sessions. Whether it's a quick task or an all-day grind, the C7 ensures that you are supported from start to finish.
So, do you like it?
Yeah! As our technician is very happy with his new chair, he is expected to continue the work and not rest too much, you know? So we will continue recording as he begins to assemble the iMac again. Let us install the left speaker, then connect its cable to the logic board, then finally bring the clean 5K LCD to the main chassis. Then we're going to plug in the camera cable, followed by the EDP cable, and finally the backlight cable. Next, we're going to put some tape to the sides of the iMac to prevent the LCD from falling down during the final QC phase. Now the moment of the truth. Is it going to turn on or not? That's great! So now our QC inspector will begin the final QC check to see if there's any additional damage to the internal hardware. Unfortunately, as we tested the display with the repaired logic board, we noticed watermark stains inside. Looks like the flood left its mark. They are so much visible when you switch to white wallpaper, and it's quite visible from a distance. For now, there's nothing more we can fix for this LCD, so we will move on to the next flaw we can find in the QC report, and that is the left speaker. So obviously you can hear the volume of the left speaker is really slow compared to the right one. So we need to disassemble it back and figure out what's wrong, and it turns out flood water actually went inside the speaker and blocking the sound. So it seems that we need to let it dry in the sun for another day or two, and that actually fixed the problem. As everything works fine, it's time to put the adhesive strips back on the edges of the iMac. You gotta make sure the strip line is completely clean and free from sticky residue before applying it. As you finish sticking all adhesive strips in place, we're going to peel off the top liner from one side of the strip. Then we carefully align the display panel and slowly place it back onto the iMac's body. And just like that, this iMac has been brought back to life. But this isn't just another repair, as this is part of our CSR initiative. That's all we can do to give back to the community by restoring this iMac without charging a single cent, because we know how overwhelming it can be to recover after a flood. It's our way of making a difference one small step at a time. And thank you FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. And if you don't know this yet, right now FlexiSpot is having a huge anniversary sale on their website, up to 65% off price guaranteed on selected furniture. So make sure to grab one on FlexiSpot and don't miss out on this great deal. And that's it folks, that's all for today, and let us know what else you want to see on this channel. So make sure to subscribe, and see you again at iBorf RCC channel, reverse engineering at its best. Have a nice day and thanks for watching.